Welcome and thank you for joining us. This is another episode of Happy, Healthy, and Skeptical. We are your hosts. I am Jen Hobson and I have Christy Palermo with me, and we are excited to talk to you today about our favorite topic, stress. This time we are starting with me asking Christy. Stress is a huge topic, and we worked a little bit about how to even tackle the idea of stress. But to start with, Christy, do you remember a time for you that was more stressful than other times? And maybe it's in the past versus now. And what tools have you really created and learned to mitigate feelings of stress?
Great question, because I think we all can relate and know that we deal with stress on a daily, hourly, sometimes minute basis. Stress can be physical, mental, emotional. There's so many different forms of it. But I would say I can look back and see a difference in how I used to deal with stress as opposed to now, where these days I'm really heavily into growth mode and personal development and it's always a long road, but always trying to grow and be better and find better tools for things. But I can look back and see that my stress before, I didn't know how to deal with it. So I was just busy as busy could be, that I would just be like in the moment doing something, but already thinking of the next thing I had to do. I just kept going. And so my way to deal with stress was just to keep going and just, okay, well, I got to get through this thing and then I'll worry about, then I'll focus on the next thing. And so I just kind of kept going. And then as most of us deal with, then it results in an injury or a sickness or something when I finally had to slow down and deal with whatever stress was happening. But I wouldn't say I ever really dealt with a lot of stuff until more recently. And so a lot of it has come from reading personal development books. We mention this probably every podcast that we talk about things, because it's such a huge part of giving us tools to work through. And so I find that reading and journaling are things that keep me level. I find that journaling is how I work through a lot of stress too, even if it's just one page in the day. Something's really bothering me, I have to get it off my chest, and I'll work through it in pages of writing, just so it gets out. And through that, I also find probably the most helpful thing for me, and now I can recognize when I need it, is that I just need to step away from everybody and everything and just recharge. And sometimes it's just a couple hours, sometimes it's a half a day, sometimes it's I need a full day. And honestly, my husband and I have really worked out the system that has made it so that and maybe this might be something some of you listening do, or maybe it would be something helpful, but we do this and it kind of keeps us on track on a weekly basis, is that ever since our daughter was born, she's 3 years old now. And so ever since she was born, we switch off, where he takes Saturday morning and he'll take till whatever time he just wants, if he wants to sleep, if he wants to go do something. And then I take Sunday morning. And so we've done that. And now we have 2 kids, about to have our third. And we've kept that every week, literally for the last 3.5 years. And obviously, unless we're traveling or something comes up, but that is just a known part of our schedule. And I feel like that helps us stay ahead of stress, because then I'm able to, knowing that I'm the type of person that needs to take a moment and just be by myself. And usually it is to do personal development in that time for me, that I find it helpful. But just having that scheduled time weekly to myself, to recharge. And I think that's what's really important, is just knowing or figuring out what it is that recharges you, honestly, because stress is a drainer. We all know that it drains us in so many ways. And then it ends up, even if it's not physical stress, or even if it is, it turns into something physical in the long run, because your body just can't live in that fight or flight mode forever. And we tend to live there way too much. So having that time scheduled into your day, into your week, even if it's 10 minutes of downtime, quiet time, that can still shift your mindset. It can shift your energy. It can lower stress levels. And I will say working out too. So as I'm talking, I'm like thinking of more things. Working out always relieves stress for me, even when I don't want to work out. I make myself do, and I'm, 7.5 months pregnant, and I'll still just do 10 minutes and it changes my body chemistry. Like I can feel it. I can feel it shift so many things and reduce stress. So moving your body in whatever way, sometimes it's just going for a walk or working out though. Just moving your body can just change so much in your system and stress levels. So that was a very long-winded response. And so now I'd love to turn it around to you and have you answer the same thing.
Before I go into that, I wanted to ask you, Christy, now being a mom of, I'm gonna say 2.5, and being an entrepreneur and wearing all these different hats, right? You're more than just a wife and a mom and an entrepreneur. You are you. What do you think are your most stressful days in this season? What are the things that trigger stress for you right now?
That's a good way to word it. I have to really think about that for a
Think
moment.
about that and I'll come back to you and I'll answer
Okay.
your question. That way I give you a second to actually process it, right? Sometimes we're asked questions and we want to give the fastest answer when that's not necessarily the answer. We just want to give an answer. So for me, there's different seasons. I don't think there's a before and a now. There's definitely been different seasons. And I find for me, a lot of times when I'm feeling the most stressed, it's usually rooted in my stories. So it's either, and it's not necessarily just a story, it's a truth, right? In finances. If I've been in a situation where finances aren't the way that I need or want them to be, that causes stress. Even though I may have money in the bank, I'm thinking about, oh my God, what could happen if this happened and then this happened and this happened and this happened and this happened. And I'm overthinking and overanalyzing. I heard this before is there's no reason to worry about something that hasn't happened yet because then you're worrying about it twice. You're stressing out about it twice. You're stressing about it before it actually happened, which a lot of times it doesn't even end up happening. Then you're stressing out when it does happen. So try to release that idea of I'm going to worry about something that hasn't happened yet. That has definitely been a big learning curve for me. And then the other one is emotional for me, right? My emotional responses for me. I think that shows up and is the most challenging for me being a parent. I didn't always know that I wanted to be a parent. And I think the things that held me back is I was so afraid to fail. I have a big challenge of being afraid to fail. And actually, I shared with Christy earlier, the book that I'm reading now is Rising Strong by Brene Brown. And we've actually created this culture where we are afraid to fail. So we only do the things that we know we can succeed at. And that's not necessarily growth mode. That's not where we're going to grow. So having not known if I wanted to be a parent and then becoming a parent, and now it's not necessarily just the infancy and the baby stage, the one where they don't talk back to you. I have the older one and really challenging with things I experienced as a child, getting through if it was traumatic for me or learning from it and really trying to, I'm not perfect at it, and realizing when I make a mistake to bring it back. I feel like right now that still continues to be the most stress causing is finances always, whether or not I'm in perfect financial status in someone else's eyes, I always have that feeling behind me. And then also the challenge of just being emotionally supportive, not only to my kids, but to myself, right? And being able to apologize. So those are definitely stress related for me. And a lot of what you said, Christy, those are my things. And actually, I'm a dancer. I'm a dancer at heart. That is what I do. And mine isn't Saturday or Sunday morning, like you said, but every Friday night, I actually dance. I do ballet and then I do tap. And I was thinking about it as you're saying these things, and I don't think I've ever actually maybe realized it. The reason I love dancing is because I don't think about anything else. I think that's the only time my head is quiet. I think it's the only time my brain is quiet. And if any of you took a trip into my brain, it's like literally a squirrel, which I think a lot of women, and I think there's men too, but I think a lot of women were like this, right? In my brain, probably right now is, oh, I have to record that podcast with Chrissy. Then I'm going to edit that podcast. Then I'm going to post it, but it's not going to post until Saturday because we told them it would happen on Saturday. And I got to figure out what's for dinner later. But then I also got to clean Landon's laundry so that he has pants for the trip that we're taking. And we're going to go where there's also a pool, but there could be snow. So we need clothes for both. And, and, and there's all these tabs open. And what's crazy is I think before, when I was younger, I remember distinctively my mom saying, well, because I'll say, oh my God, I have had the worst headache for like 2 weeks. And, maybe there are other health underliers. And she's like, well, you sound like you're a little bit stressed. And I wasn't recognizing the stress. And if you're not able to recognize the stress, you're not A, able to figure out the ways to mitigate the stress. And B, you're not able to go, all right, I need to take a step back and figure out what are the things that are causing me stress. I need the tools in my toolbox to decrease the stress, but I also need to identify what are the things that are stressing me the fuck out. If you can't identify them, then it's hard to move forward. Where I think as an adult, I recognize there are a lot of things that are stressful. And my outlet 1000% is to dance. And that's not necessarily for everyone, but take the time to figure out what truly brings you joy and what's the one activity that can turn your brain off. It is hard to turn our brains off. They're constantly working. And I think that's been the craziest thing. And I have also seen that when I don't make stress a priority, which that's a little bit funny to say, when I don't make stress a priority, and what I mean by that is when I don't identify it and I don't use the tools in my toolbox, I do see it in my physical self, right? I get a tension headache. My sinuses hurt. All of a sudden, I have a head cold. My stomach hurts. My gut hurts, right? Now I have bloating and indigestion when I know I'm eating all the right foods. Or it's emotional. Again, as a female, we are on a cyclical month by month basis, right? So we know there's certain times where we're stressed already and our body is adding to the stressors. It's like, oh, hey, you're having a hard day. Here's a shit ton of hormones. How do you feel now? And as a pregnant person, I'm sure you can relate. So now we're feeling,
No.
now you're feeling all of these emotions that have nothing to do with your environmental stress. And it's like, oh my God, this is stress overload. And like you said, now we're constantly in fight or flight and boosting cortisol, constantly in that fight or flight. And all we're doing is we're boosting and staying in that state and releasing and releasing and releasing cortisol, which for any of you that know, back in the day, cortisol had a purpose. But now we are inundated with stress that we are constantly putting cortisol into our body. And where does it live? Right around the midsection. So
Absolutely. Yes, and it comes out, it manifests in so many ways, and we all know this. And so like you said, it is identifying, spending the time with the stress and identifying what is stressing you. And as you were saying that, it was taking me a minute to be like, what are my biggest stressors right now, like in this season of life? Because I do need to identify it. And I think myself can agree, like I can agree with you, but I'm sure others, many others listening to this, that money is a huge stressor if it's not right. Like we might have money in the bank, but if it's not going the way I wanted it to or thought we would be at a place right now, it's a huge stressor. And that goes back to an old pattern that I had when I was younger, like as I first got out of college and learning about money and learning that I didn't know anything about money. And the stressor, like just you mentioning money, it like sends me into a physical tension that I can now recognize that I'm like, okay, you're safe, it's just my body trying to protect me, but recognizing like that is a trigger for me for sure. So reminding myself that I am safe, I am okay, we are doing well. And like or it's just what steps do I need to take then to take control back if I'm feeling out of control with it. So finances for sure is a huge one. And also when I feel out of control of things, like when my kids get sick, and they're young. They're 1.5 and 3. Like the 1.5-year-old, he can't always tell me what's going on, and it becomes a physical stress to me when I don't know how to help, or I don't know what to do. And I'm sure a lot of parents know that exact same feeling. And so it's a lot of trial and error trying to figure out, and we're all doing our best trying to figure out what's best for them, and just to make them comfortable. And so I think that's can be a big stressor. And I'm thinking of that because my little one just had a really high fever this past weekend, and it lasted longer than we expected. And you're just like questioning, like, what the heck, what's going on? Like, why isn't it going away? And like, what am I doing? So it becomes a big stressor. So then again, stepping back and taking a moment, like, okay, I'm doing the best. Us as parents, we're doing the best we can to make him comfortable. He is okay, but it was, that questioning. And then I would say, whenever I feel like my goals, which I would say right now are around my business, so maybe success goals, when they are not going as planned, that causes a lot of stress because, yeah, I identify, which this just is making me think we need to do a whole episode on this, is as um, identifying as where my accomplishments are, and where my identity is tied to that. And that's something I've recognized recently with my personal development and my journaling. Circling back around to that, is realizing that I find a huge piece of my identity in my accomplishments and what I am doing successfully. And so if it's not going to as planned, that causes a major stress, emotional, physical, uh, mental, all the things. And so having to recognize and step back, like I said before, I have to talk to myself and be like, you are safe, you are fine, and things are right where they're meant to be, and it's much better than you're making it out to be. I'm actually creating more stress around it. So yeah, so I'd say it's 3 areas, but financial, um, and when I say things out of my control, like my kids' health, so health related things, and then when things are related to my success or work journey, and goals around that.
Yeah, the
Uh,
thing that you said that stood out to me, and it's that circle of control, right? When really, I think when we peel back the layers, we're in this state of we constantly are trying to find solutions, where we always need an answer. We always need to solve a problem. And sometimes there's just no answer and we need to experience it. Sometimes kids get sick because their immunity needs to get sick so it can fight the next thing. And we have to kind of relinquish control of that. And I loved that you brought up the conversation of you identify as your accomplishments. When we go back to the conversation about this fear of failure, it's because a lot of us identify as the failure, as we didn't accomplish that goal. So not only did I fail to meet that goal, I myself am a failure, when that's not the truth. You had to fail so you could figure out how to take the next step. And I've done a lot of work around that too, Chrissy. I can absolutely resonate with, I am not my accomplishments. And in our business, we say a lot, I am not my title. Even for people that are not in network marketing, if you are in a typical corporation, if you're the president of the company, you are not your title. You need to take some time and figure out who you are. And then even on your fitness journey, I actually did a live this morning and I said, you are not your weight, right? So if you're a person that's having stress around your health and your fitness, and you're tying your success to the number on the scale, guess what? You are not that number. You are how you feel. You are how you fuel yourself. You are how you take care of yourself. And I think a lot of our stress, and I love that you said it, is connected to who we think we should be or what we think we should be accomplishing. And I think we just need to give ourselves, again, a little bit of grace. Stress has a place. And don't get it confused. We're not saying there should be absolutely no stress in your life. That's just not something we can accomplish. You need a little bit of stress so it pushes you to do the scary things, just like we talked about last time in resistance. Stress and resistance can feel very, very similar. It doesn't mean you shut down and stop. It means you just have to accomplish. And similar to what Christy said, where it made her sick because she kept going, you can keep going. Just keep a check on it. How am I actually feeling? Am I feeling stressed, or am I feeling like I'm moving forward? Am I feeling stressed and now I'm feeling sick, or I'm feeling that energy that's keeping me going? And I think for myself, the way I also take stock of that is you have to take stock of your environment and back to the people you're surrounding yourself with and who you're giving your time to. Are you committed to surrounding yourself with energy givers, or are you including energy suckers in your life? And look in the mirror. Are you an energy giver or are you an energy sucker? What are you putting out into the universe? Because whatever we put out into the universe is what we're going to get back. So if you're a person that's constantly having the conversation that's like, maybe even in our business, like the only people that are joining me, they're so negative and they don't want to do anything, and they won't even try hard. You know what? Take a look in the mirror. What's the energy you're putting out into the world? No matter where you are, maybe that's in your fitness journey. None of my friends want to get healthy with me. All they want to do is sit on the couch and binge Netflix and eat hot Cheetos. I don't know, but take a look. What are you doing? Who are you surrounding yourself with? And what are the things you're feeding your mind? Back to reading, back to podcasts, even the news. Turn it off, right? These are all the things. It's not just people. It's totally our environment. And if our environment is setting us up to fail and be overstressed, then that's on us.
Because we do have the choice to take ourselves out of it, change our environment, or like you're saying, what we're watching. Like I have totally shifted what I allow myself to watch on TV anymore. Because, there's of course moments where my husband and I, we just want to like chill out at night and watch stuff. But I know myself now that I will not watch anything. And this is just me because I feel the physical reaction to when I'm watching something either scary or gory or just too sad and negative. Like I just literally won't watch it anymore because I know it can add stress that I don't need, and then it affects my sleep, like all those things. Like, and so it's being able to, knowing that you have the choice to make the changes, but also recognizing what it is. Again, identifying what are the things that are affecting you. And it might sound so silly that, oh, it's just a TV show, but if all you watch is I don't know,
I'm
whatever.
like laughing because I love that you said that, because my husband is he's a huge fan of horror, right? And maybe I didn't feel it when I was younger, or I didn't feel the physical impact, but I'm definitely like that. And especially in the last 5 years, like I just don't want to watch this stuff anymore. Or the big one, and I get it, this shit happens in real life. Like people get hurt, people die, but like I don't want to watch a show where a child gets hurt. Like I can't do it. It
Yeah.
literally makes me want to get sick. So I was just laughing because I'm like, oh my God, I can absolutely resonate with that. I don't even want to watch them anymore. Or I have to prepare myself mentally. Like I haven't watched The Whale yet, and I really do want to watch it, but I have to pick a time where I know it won't create that physical response and come out in something else, because I know it's going to be an experience. And I mean, that's what good stories and good movies are. But I have to protect that time and figure out, when am I going to actually commit to watching something like that?
Right. And I agree with that because, yeah, it's not like I want to just cut out
Yeah.
hearing about stories that are happening or on the news. Like, of course, I want to also know what's happening and stay involved in our culture. But, and because I've heard of that movie too being so huge and such a huge hit, I do want to see it too. But I agree, I'll have to set a time when I know it won't affect me as much and I can watch it a little more just as a movie and not knowing that it's going to affect my
Right.
energy.
And it's
But
almost
I
like
do know
after
it.
it's an
Yeah,
emotional and physical hangover. I don't know if anyone's
yeah,
ever had that, but you're
that's
like,
a good way to put it.
it is. It's like this emotional, physical hangover, and it's okay once in a while. embrace those moments. We need to feel, just like when hard stuff happens in our lives. We lose someone important in our lives. There's a death in the family. Someone does get actually sick. Something unforeseen happens. Feel that. Absolutely. That's when stress is important. However, when you have the opportunity to protect yourself from the things in your environment that don't need to be heavy and challenging, do yourself a favor. There are enough stressors. And I'm not going to go all the way into it, but I do want to encourage you to take stock of your environmental stressors of toxins. We've talked about this before, but what are you eating? What are you putting on your skin? What are you putting as air fragrances throughout your house? Think about that too. Stress overload.
Toxin overload causes all that stress in our bodies, even if you're not recognizing it, even if you are pretending like it's not a bother. And some people are like, oh, that doesn't matter. Like, but it's toxin after toxin after toxin built up, built up, built up everywhere in our house all day long. What we're putting on our skin, what we're putting in our laundry, like candles, everything, like it adds up. It's the little compound effect, but in a negative way,
Yeah,
with all the toxins that build up, and it does affect your body into a stress that it doesn't need to have. But I like that you also did talk about, because I was going to mention too, is how important it is to sit with stress and take the moment and and really just see how it's affecting you, but also work through it. Like, let yourself be sad, because that's something I never did in the past either. I never let myself sit with those emotions and work through and feel through the sadness or the stress. And now I'm teaching my kids, like, it's okay to be mad. It's okay to be mad. It's okay to be sad. And I'm right here with you while we work through it together, or if they're mad and, toddlers, they want to hit things or bite or something. So it's like giving them other options. Okay, let's stomp our feet. Let's go rip up some paper. Let's yell, roar like a tiger. I don't know, thinking
for
of things.
sure.
But it's the same for us. It's being able to say, I'm okay for feeling this way. This is valid. This is a valid feeling. I want to acknowledge that I feel this way, and then sitting with it and let it run its course. Because especially as you mentioned with grief, I mean, so many times you hear of people, and myself included, you just don't sit with it and deal with it, and it manifests itself in other ways. So
For sure.
I mean, there's so many different areas of stress that we
Yeah,
could keep touching upon. But I think it's, as you said at the beginning, it's really recognizing and identifying what it is that are your biggest stressors, and maybe journal on it. Take a minute and just think about it today as you're listening to this, and then what you can do, or what is going to help you calm down the most, to get your body out of that fight or flight mode, really,
yeah,
so that it doesn't turn into something way worse.
absolutely. That way it doesn't show up in another part of your life. And now you have a whole nother thing to deal with that you didn't plan on. And I think I love that you said, teaching our kids these coping mechanisms when they are angry or when they're upset. And then I think there's the other side of it. Why are you upset? Really identifying it. Are they just upset to be upset? Are they upset about that thing? Or are they upset about the thing that happened yesterday, but they didn't deal with it at the time? Just like adults, a lot of times when we are upset and pissed in the moment, it has nothing to do with what just happened. It comes from something else, or it piled up, piled up, piled up, piled up. Remember all those crazy thoughts I had in my head? Well, they got away from me, and now I'm just frustrated because I feel like I haven't gotten anything done. So I think this was a great conversation. Like Christy said, we could talk about stress all day. It's one of the biggest parts of our lives. Give yourself a little bit of grace. When there are real things to be upset about, allow yourself to be. But find the things that bring you joy and quiet the noise and give yourself time to recharge. Just like Christy said, if your battery is empty, guess what? You're not being an energy giver. You got no more energy to give. So until we talk next time, thank you for being here. And you can follow us on Instagram at Happy Healthy Skeptical and join the conversation. We would love to hear from you.